The girl stepped out of a luxury car, her diamond heels tapping the ground like they owned it. Her sunglasses reflected the afternoon sun, and her lips curved into an expression of annoyance rather than gratitude. "Be careful," she sneered, brushing invisible dust off her white designer jacket. "This car costs more than your life." The mechanic standing before her didn't respond. His hands were covered in grease, his navy blue jumpsuit slightly torn at the sleeve. He simply smiled faintly, a quiet, knowing smile, and stepped toward the back of the car. With calm precision, he lifted the trunk. Inside lay something that made the billionaire's daughter freeze, and the laughter on her lips died instantly. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? And if you love powerful stories with emotional twists, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join our growing family of storytellers. Your support truly helps us bring more heart-touching stories to life. The day had started with nothing but frustration for Amara Sterling, daughter of billionaire industrialist Richard Sterling. Her luxurious Rolls-Royce Phantom had stopped right in the middle of the city outskirts, a place she would never usually set foot in. Dusty roads, small workshops, and men in oily uniforms. It was far from the glass towers she called home. "Unbelievable," she muttered, slamming her phone shut after her driver failed to pick up. "Dad spends millions on cars and they still break down like toys." Her gaze fell on a small garage nearby, Carter's Auto Repairs. The sign was faded, letters slightly chipped. She sighed dramatically and called out, "Hey, is anyone even working here?" From inside the dimly lit workshop, a man appeared. He was tall, with a calm face and deep, thoughtful eyes. His skin was the color of bronze polished by years of sunlight. He walked slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. "I can take a look," he said softly. Amara raised an eyebrow. "You? Are you sure you even know what a Rolls-Royce looks like up close?" The man, Elijah Carter, didn't react. He simply nodded and approached the car. "Pop the hood." Her phone buzzed again. It was her best friend, Sophie, FaceTiming from a cafe downtown. "Girl, where are you? You disappeared after brunch." Amara rolled her eyes. "Don't ask. My car broke down in the middle of nowhere. Some mechanic is looking at it." Sophie laughed. "Send me a video. I bet it's hilarious." With a smirk, Amara flipped her camera toward Elijah, who was quietly inspecting the engine. "See? Told you. Totally out of his league." Elijah glanced up briefly but said nothing. His movements were patient and practiced, not like a cheap street mechanic, but someone who understood machines intimately. Still, Amara couldn't stop herself. "You fix cars because you couldn't afford to drive one, right?" she teased. There was a pause, only the sound of tools clinking. Then Elijah looked up and said quietly, "Sometimes, Miss Sterling, the driver knows more than the owner." The simplicity of his tone somehow stung. Amara frowned, crossing her arms. "Whatever that's supposed to mean." She walked away, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to notice how confident and composed the mechanic seemed. His hands moved with precision, like he wasn't just repairing a car, but understanding its soul. Minutes later, Elijah shut the hood and gestured toward the trunk. "There's something odd here," he murmured. Amara, impatient, followed him. "Just fix it already. My dad will pay whatever it takes." Elijah didn't answer. He lifted the trunk slowly. A gust of wind blew across the dusty road as sunlight reflected off a small metal frame tucked inside. Amara's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" Elijah froze for a brief second, just long enough for her to notice. He reached inside and gently picked up the object. It was a framed photograph, half covered in a velvet cloth. The glass was slightly cracked, but the image inside was clear. A younger man who looked a lot like Elijah, standing beside a familiar face. Her father, Richard Sterling. Amara blinked, confused. Wait, why is that in my trunk? Elijah didn't respond. Right away, he looked at her quietly, eyes reflecting years of buried emotion. Strange, he finally said. Life has a way of bringing back things that were never really gone. Amara frowned. What are you talking about? Elijah placed the photograph on the car's edge, wiped his hands, and met her gaze. Maybe you should ask your father, he said softly. Amara's confidence faltered. The mocking tone in her voice faded as she glanced back at the photograph, her father's younger self smiling beside this same mechanic. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment, the discovery inside the trunk, was about to unravel, a secret buried deep within her family's past. The photograph lay on the car's trunk like an open wound, silent, powerful, impossible to ignore. Amara stared at it, her mind racing. Her father's face smiled back at her from another lifetime, standing beside the same man she had just insulted. How do you know my dad? She stammered. Elijah didn't answer right away. He placed the photo carefully on a nearby workbench and went back to tightening a bolt on her car, as if the question didn't need an answer. Hey, Amara snapped, irritation mixing with confusion. I asked you something. Finally, Elijah looked up. His eyes were calm, too calm. I used to work for him, he said quietly. A long time ago. Her laughter came out sharp and disbelieving. You? My father only hires people with actual qualifications, not whatever this is. She gestured at the worn-out garage and the dusty tools. Elijah didn't react. Instead, a faint, almost nostalgic smile touched his lips. Yes, he did hire qualified people once. Just then, a teenage boy came running from the back of the garage. Noah, Elijah's young assistant. Boss, I found the spare filter. Oh! He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Amara. His eyes widened. Wait, you're Richard Sterling's daughter, right? The billionaire who owns Sterling Motors? Amara looked surprised. Yeah, why? Noah's voice dropped. Mr. Carter used to work there, before everything happened. Elijah shot Noah a look, quiet but firm, and the boy immediately fell silent. Amara frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before what happened? Elijah sighed, wiping his hands again, a small, tired gesture of someone carrying more than words could explain. Before your father's company decided I was a liability, he walked past her, pulling a chair near the window. The golden, afternoon light fell on his face as he spoke, his voice low and steady. I was an automotive engineer at Sterling Motors. Worked there for almost 8 years. I designed engines, tested safety systems, even helped create the prototype that became your father's flagship model. He glanced toward her car. The one you're driving now. Amara's jaw tightened. That's impossible. My father would have mentioned you. Elijah gave a small, sad chuckle. He wouldn't, because he made sure no one remembered me after I refused to stay silent. Silent about what? Elijah leaned back, his eyes distant, haunted by memory. There was a project, a luxury car your father wanted to release quickly to beat his competitors, but the internal test results showed a serious flaw in the engine. It could overheat, cause accidents. I reported it. He paused, voice softening. Your father promised he'd handle it quietly, but a few weeks later the car went into production anyway. When I questioned him again, they called it a misunderstanding, then accused me of tampering with company data. I was fired, blacklisted. Amara blinked, speechless. You're lying. My father would never, wouldn't he? Elijah interrupted gently. Look in that trunk again, Miss Sterling. That photograph isn't just a memory. It was taken the day after I saved your father's life. Her heart skipped. Saved his life? Elijah nodded. A lab explosion in the Sterling Motors facility 15 years ago. The news called it a minor fire. But your father was trapped inside. I pulled him out before the entire wing went up in flames. He looked down at his hands, the same ones now covered in grease and dust. They gave me that photo as a thank you gift. A week later, I was out of a job. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Amara looked at him, her expression changing, pride melting into disbelief, disbelief slowly turning into guilt. Behind her, Noah whispered, softly, "He built everything from scratch, miss. He could have worked anywhere, but he chose peace over revenge." Elijah stood and nodded toward her car. "Your car's fixed. You're free to go." But Amara didn't move. Her fingers brushed the edge of the photograph once more. For the first time, her reflection in the car's polished metal didn't show confidence. It showed confusion. As she climbed into the car, her mind replayed Elijah's words. Sometimes, the driver knows more than the owner. She didn't know why, but those words suddenly felt heavier than before. Like a truth her father had spent years burying. And somewhere deep down, she felt that the man she had just mocked wasn't finished revealing his story yet. Amara drove away from the small garage, but Elijah's words echoed inside her head like an old song she couldn't turn off. They called it a misunderstanding, then accused me of tampering with company data. His calm voice, his unwavering tone, the quiet sadness in his eyes. None of it matched the image she had of people who lied. As she pulled into the Sterling estate, the iron gates swung open automatically, revealing the manicured lawns and marble fountains that had always felt like her kingdom. But today, that kingdom seemed hollow. She parked the car and sat still, staring at the dashboard. Her fingers itched toward the trunk button, the one Elijah had opened earlier. Something in her chest told her she wasn't ready, but curiosity overpowered her hesitation. With a soft click, the trunk lifted. There it was again, the velvet cloth, the photograph, and beside it, something she hadn't noticed before. A small metal box, worn and scratched, its lid slightly ajar. Amara frowned. That wasn't there before. She pulled it out carefully, wiping the dust away. Inside were a few blueprints, yellowed papers, and a silver keychain with the engraved letters. E.C. Her pulse quickened. Elijah Carter, she whispered. The papers looked like technical schematics, engine diagrams, fuel efficiency calculations, all stamped with the Sterling Motors logo. At the bottom of one blueprint, a signature caught her eye. Elijah Carter, lead engineer. She flipped through them, realizing these were detailed plans for the same model she drove. Only the data on the blueprints showed something alarming. Flaw reports, written in red ink marked critical, do not proceed with release. Her stomach twisted. No way! She felt her chest tighten as she read a handwritten note, clipped to one of the papers. If anything happens to me, this is proof. They knew, and they silenced me. E.C. Before she could think, she heard footsteps approaching, her father's unmistakable voice calling from the mansion steps. Amara, you're back early. She quickly stuffed the box back into the trunk and turned. Hey, Dad, just a small car issue. Richard Sterling, tall and dignified with silver streaks in his hair, smiled warmly. The kind of smile that convinced the world he was a saint. Ah, these cars, always acting up when you least expect it. But when Nadi, his gaze drifted toward the trunk. His expression flickered for a split second, a hint of recognition. Where did you take it? He asked. Some small garage near Westfield. A man named Elijah fixed it. The name hit him like a punch. His hand froze on the car door. Elijah Carter? Amara frowned. Yeah. Why? You know him? He forced a tight smile. Of course not. Just curious. but his voice trembled almost imperceptibly. Later that night, when the mansion lights dimmed and the world grew quiet, Amara couldn't sleep. She sneaked back outside, opened the trunk once more, and took out the metal box. This time, she turned on her phone's flashlight and examined every page. Her father's signature appeared on the project approval sheets. Next to it, a bold red note: issue dismissed. Proceed with production. Her breath caught. Elijah hadn't been lying. As tears stung her eyes, she looked at the photo again. Elijah standing proudly beside her father, holding a small child in his arms. That child wasn't her. And yet, there was something hauntingly familiar about the boy's face. The eyes, the smile. She whispered to herself, "Who is he?" The next morning, Amara returned to the garage. Her voice was softer this time, almost apologetic. "Mr. Carter, that photo, the little boy in it, who is he?" Elijah looked up from under the car hood. His expression shifted from calm to sorrow. "That," he said quietly, "was your brother Daniel." Amara blinked, stunned. "My brother? That's impossible. You don't remember," Elijah interrupted gently, "because you were too young when he died, and the truth about his death was buried with my career." Amara's heart stopped. She took a small step back. "What do you mean by that?" Elijah sighed, his eyes glistening. "Your brother didn't die by accident, Amara. He died because of the same car your father forced me to build." The words hit her like a thunderclap. The air around her seemed to vanish, and for the first time in her life, Amara Sterling felt the ground beneath her shift. The world she thought she knew beginning to crumble. Amara stood frozen, her mind struggling to process Elijah's words. "My brother died because of the car my father forced you to build?" Elijah set down his wrench and wiped his hands, his face heavy with grief and exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying the truth alone for too long. He nodded slowly. "Daniel was only 5 years old. Your father had just launched the first Sterling X Series, the car I warned him about. He wanted to test drive it himself, but that day, he handed the keys to his driver. Daniel was in the back seat." Amara's eyes widened, her lips trembling. "The car accident? You mean—" "Yes," Elijah said softly. "The explosion wasn't random. The same engine flaw I reported caused it. I begged them to recall the model, but they didn't want the media to find out. The death was called a mechanical malfunction." He swallowed hard. "But I knew the truth. I was there at the factory that night, running tests to prove the car wasn't safe. When I went to the board, your father had me removed from the premises. The next morning, Daniel was gone." A tear rolled down Amara's cheek. The garage felt suffocating, the smell of oil and metal mixing with the bitter taste of betrayal. Her father's image, the loving, flawless man she admired all her life, began to crack in her mind like shattered glass. Elijah's voice softened. "Your father wasn't a monster, Amara. He was desperate. The company was drowning in debt. Investors were pulling out. He chose success over safety, and that choice destroyed both of us." Amara's breath hitched. "Why didn't you tell the world? Why stay silent?" "I tried," Elijah whispered. "But your father was powerful. The media called me bitter, jealous, a liar. My name was ruined. My wife left. I lost everything, except this." He pointed at the photo. "That picture reminded me of the only time I believed in him, before greed turned him into someone else." Amara covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. "All this time, I blamed the driver. I thought Daniel's death was just fate." Elijah's eyes glistened. "It wasn't fate, Amara. It was choice." Silence lingered between them, heavy, human, heartbreaking. Finally, Amara looked up, determination replacing her tears. My father needs to tell the truth. The world deserves to know what really happened. Elijah shook his head. The truth doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it just burns everything left standing. Then let it burn, she said fiercely, because living in a lie is worse. For the first time, Elijah saw something in her eyes, the same fire Daniel used to have. As she turned to leave, she stopped at the door and whispered, You saved my father once, Elijah. Now it's my turn to save what's left of his soul. Elijah didn't reply. He simply nodded, his expression both proud and broken, as if, after all these years, justice had finally found its voice. The next morning, the Sterling mansion was silent. For the first time, Amara didn't wake up to the sound of servants or the soft hum of luxury. She woke up with purpose. Clutching the photograph in her trembling hands, she walked down the long, marble hallway toward her father's office. The door was slightly open, and inside, Richard Sterling sat behind his mahogany desk, lost in the glow of his laptop screen. Dad, she said softly. He looked up, smiling faintly. Morning, sweetheart. You look serious. Amara placed the photograph on his desk, the same one he had once given Elijah as a token of gratitude. Her father's smile faded. Where did you get this? I think the better question, Amara said coldly, is why you never told me the truth. Richard's face went pale. His hand froze on the photo. Amara, listen! No! Her voice broke, trembling with both rage and grief. You lied to me. You lied to everyone. You made Elijah look like a criminal when he was the only one. Telling the truth! Her father leaned back, his confident facade crumbling. I did what I had to do. The company would have collapsed. Thousands of people would have lost their jobs. I couldn't let that happen. Amara shook her head. And Daniel? He lost his life. What about him? Silence filled the room. Richard's eyes filled with tears, the kind that come from guilt too heavy to carry any longer. I never forgave myself, he whispered. Every night I see his face. That car. That decision. It killed more than just my son. It killed me too. Amara's anger softened slightly. For the first time, she saw her father not as a billionaire or a business tycoon, but as a man crushed by his own choices. Then fix it, she said quietly. You can't bring Daniel back, but you can make things right for Elijah. That evening, Richard Sterling arrived at Carter's Auto Repairs. Elijah looked up from under a hood, surprised to see him. Richard took a deep breath. You once saved my life, Elijah, and I destroyed yours. I can't undo what I did, but I can at least give back your name and your dignity, he extended. A contract, a full partnership to reopen the engineering firm Elijah had dreamed of creating years ago, this time under his own name. Elijah stared at him silently for a long moment, then nodded. I don't want your pity, Richard. I just want honesty. Richard lowered his head. You have it. From now on, no more lies. Amara stood beside them, watching two broken men finally find peace. Weeks later, a new signboard went up on the old garage. Carter Engineering, built with truth. The camera pans out slowly, sunlight spilling over the modest building, a symbol of redemption and forgiveness. Sometimes the people we look down upon are the ones who once held us up. Respect is not about status or wealth. It's about heart. Elijah smiled faintly, glancing at the photo now hanging proudly on his wall. Him, Daniel, and Richard, from a time before greed took over. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. Let the world remember. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. Comment below and tell us, what lesson did you learn from this story? And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories that reveal the truth behind every smile.